What is up, fight nerds and dirty gamblers? I am Eric, and this is Eric Bets Fights. Welcome to my breakdown video for UFC 275, headlined by the light heavyweight title fight between Glover Teixeira and Jiri Prochazka. This is actually going to be a little bit different than the usual breakdown video that I do. This video is only going to be the main card. I do hope to still put out a video breaking down the rest of the card with the prelims as well, but I was traveling this past weekend. I'll get into it a little bit. Why not, right? I like to share a little bit about who I am sometimes. I just got married back in October, and I live in Las Vegas now, and my wife and I got married here in Las Vegas, of course. But I lived in Fargo, North Dakota for 21 years, and most of my friends are still back there, and my family is back in Minnesota and North Dakota and that sort of thing. So a lot of them weren't able to make it here for the wedding. So this past weekend, we flew back to that area, and we held 3 different wedding receptions of sorts, like for friends and family to come to. So we did like a family-friendly thing during the day at a park in Fargo, and then we did a not family-friendly thing at a bar in the evening with karaoke and shots and all that fun. And then on Saturday, I had to drive back to my hometown of Ortonville, Minnesota to do a family get-together with my aunts and uncles and grandparents and that sort of thing. And then I usually do all my tape study on Sunday and Monday. Those are my official tape study days. But I was still on this trip then. I didn't get back until late Monday night / Tuesday morning, like 2-3 a.m., something like that. So basically my entire tape study time was taken away from me. So I did try to get a little bit of it done early, and I'm still working on it now. But this also comes with a caveat. Because most of my tape study time I didn't have this week, obviously I'm still going to do the best I can. I'm going to make the most informed decisions possible, but I'm not able to dig into my research as much this week as I usually am. So if you are a person who is potentially looking to tail me, just be aware that this week might not be the best week to do it. You never know. I could do great this week. Who knows? But yeah, I just want you to know that I'm not doing the usual amount of research that I would like to do. Also, this is a great time for me to mention, when speaking of tailing me, that of course I am not a professional gambler. I am not any sort of gambling expert. I'm just a lifelong fight nerd who loves fights, loves betting on fights, loves talking about betting on fights. So when I make these videos, I am not telling you where you should bet your money. I'm simply telling you where I am betting mine. So there's the disclaimer. Before we dig into UFC 275, though, we do need to talk about my results from the Volkov Rozenstruik card. What was that, UFC Vegas 56? Guess what, gang? I had the best betting results I've had on a card yet since I started tracking. Maybe not the best results I've ever had ever, but since I started tracking in October 2021, we picked up 9.53 units with 46% ROI. So I'm feeling great about that. Let's go through those bets really quick and just talk about how that went. We had 1.6 units on Alexander Volkov at minus 160, so that one hit, of course. He got that first round KO. Didn't see that one coming. I did hedge a little bit on Dan Ige. I put a unit on him at plus 330. I kind of started overthinking that one, and I thought, you know what, there's value on him at that line. I should have just left that one alone, but oh well, live and learn. Also, I had that huge bomb that I dropped, the biggest money line bet that I've made in my career so far. I put 10 units on Damon Jackson at minus 280. I had people on Twitter telling me I was crazy. My take on that was, that line is going to move. I'm going to have a chance to arb out of that if I want to. When I bet him at minus 280, I was thinking, you know what? By the time this closes, Damon Jackson's going to be up like minus 400, minus 500. I was wrong. By the time that line closed, Damon Jackson was at like minus 750, minus 800. So, the opportunity to arb out on Dan Argueta was definitely there. I think I could have gotten him as high as like plus 450, plus 475. I went back and forth on it. I thought about it. I was like, man, I can guarantee myself like a unit and a half of profit. But I was like, but that value, I'm pretty sure Damon Jackson's going to come through for me here. And if he does, I pick up over 3.5 units. So I decided to just ride with it, and of course he did win. The fight was a little hairier than I wanted it to be. I was on my feet screaming in round 3 when he was striking with Argueta and was getting clocked. I was like, why are you striking with him? Not that Argueta's even a great striker, he's not, but it was clear that Jackson was getting tagged up a little bit and that was not where he wanted to be, and I was freaking out. But hey, he came through for us. We picked up 3.57 units there. And then I also had 3.3 units on Jeff Molina at minus 165 and picked up 2 units there. Like I said, because I was traveling this weekend, I was able to watch the fights a little bit here and there. I wasn't able to watch them super carefully. From what I saw, I disagreed with the decision. From what I saw, it looked to me like Zhalgas Zhumagulov probably won, and I have seen a lot of people making that argument. But like I said, I wasn't able to see the fight closely enough to say for sure. But I think this is a good example of what we're seeing a lot lately, is that judges are no longer rewarding control time without damage, right? We've been seeing a lot of that. If you hold your opponent up against the cage for a long spell, or you're taking your opponent down and holding them down for long spells, but you're not doing damage, and then your opponent gets up and lands some strikes on you, even if that control time is for like 3/4 of the round, and the fighter landing the strikes is only getting the better of the striking for like 1/4 of the round, we're starting to see judges award that striking more, which I think is a good thing. For a long time we've been saying, what is a takedown really worth if you don't do anything with it? And for a long, long time, for many years, for as long as I can remember, really, judges have always given the round to the fighter that's on top, whether they're doing anything with it or not. They've always just said, "Oh, that guy was on top; he probably won." But we are starting to see them move away from that, and I think it's a good thing, really. Really looking more at damage, looking more at who's actually effectively working toward ending the fight, effectively working toward hurting their opponent, stopping their opponent, that kind of thing. So anyway, we ended up 5.57 units up on the straight bets, and then did really well in the props and parlays as well. I put two units on Evloev to win by decision at -145. That one hit for us. I put 0.2 units on Karine Silva by submission at +550. She got the sub for us there. I put half a unit on Johnny Munoz to get a sub. That obviously didn't happen. I didn't actually see that fight. I saw a few seconds of it, but yeah, from what I saw, Johnny Munoz definitely did not come anywhere near getting a submission there, so that one didn't come through. And then, of course, we had a parlay of Evloev, Jackson, and Blanchfield at -102, so almost even money on that. We had a unit on that, and that hit. And I put 1.15 units on Menefield inside the distance at -115, and that one hit. I kind of hate it when cappers do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. So often when a bet wins, somebody will be like, "Oh, I should have bet more on that." I'm like, well, yeah, when a bet wins, sure, you should have bet more on it. But Menefield inside the distance is the spot that I really should have hammered. -115, you got almost even money on the experienced UFC veteran against the guy who is honestly a complete fraud in pretty much every way. I really should have been more confident in that spot. I probably should have gone like 3 units deep in that spot or something, but even so, we end up picking up 9.53 units with 46% ROI, which is fantastic. I'm feeling good about that. That puts us overall at 66.72 units of profit at 18% ROI since I started tracking in October of 2021. And so far in the calendar year 2022, we're at about 24 units, 24 and a half units, something like that. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I know we finished 2021 at about 42 units, and we're at about 66 now. So about 24 units on the year. So, feeling good. Gonna keep moving forward, keep doing what we do. Let's go ahead and move into that betting breakdown for UFC 275. Only doing the main card here, so I'm only doing those top 5 fights. I'm not even entirely sure that I've got them in the right order, and they could always change what the main card ends up being. But like I said, I am still going to try to get a video out for the prelims as well. It might not be until Friday night. It might not be until the very last minute, but I'm going to try to do it if I can get all my tape study done. Anyway. First fight of the main card, or at least what I've got as the first fight of the main card, Rogerio Bontorin versus Manel Kape. What do we got for betting odds there? Kape is a pretty big favorite at -225, with Rogerio Bontorin at about +190. Bontorin is 17-4 overall. He's 3-3 in the UFC. Kape throws almost 4 more significant strikes per minute than Bontorin and lands about 2 more significant strikes per minute. So on the feet, Kape is definitely the busier and more effective striker. Bontorin does land about 2.9 takedowns per 15 minutes. And on the ground, he has strong top control. He has good sub defense. He has a good back take. He does a really nice job of staying tight to his opponent and not really giving them room to work on the ground, which I like to see. Manel Kape does have 80% takedown defense, but I think it's important to note that he's only faced 10 total takedown attempts in the UFC, and 9 of those were from Mateus Nicolau. So he's only faced one. I'm not sure which fighter it was from off the top of my head, but he's only faced 1 takedown attempt outside of that Mateus Nicolau fight. That doesn't even sound right, does it? Man, I hope I typed that statistic correctly, because that sounds wrong, but somebody let me know in the comments if I got that wrong. As far as breaking down their skills, as a striker, Rogerio Bontorin is all about countering. He can be frustratingly inactive on the feet because he's not one of those fighters who's looking to just touch you with strikes. He's not looking to win a decision. He waits and he waits and he waits to find that opening, to throw that one big hammer, to try to hurt you, to try to knock you down, to try to finish the fight. As a grappler, like I said, Bontorin has really good top control. He stays really tight. He doesn't give his opponent room to work. He's that really, frustratingly stifling type of grappler, which I do like to see. As for Manel Kape, he's very quick and athletic. He has really fast counter punches. I think he's the faster, more athletic guy of the two. He does stay pretty composed on the feet. His footwork and head movement and speed and athleticism, like I said, can make him hard to hit. He tends to be a tactician and a sniper on the feet. And I typed in my notes here. He's a tactician and a sniper on the feet, and I think I may have stolen that verbiage directly from one of the commentators, but I can't remember for sure. So I think one of the commentators might have said that while I was watching tape, and I typed it in my notes. So if you're out there, whichever commentator said that, sorry I stole that from you if I did. In Manel Kape's most recent fight with Zhalgas Zhumagulov, whom we also saw in action against Jeff Molina just this past weekend, he showed really good killer instinct and really good ability to pick his shots and throw with impressive precision even when he's looking for that finish. You know, sometimes we'll see fighters get a little too wild and get a little too overzealous when they feel they've got their opponent hurt, when they're smelling that blood and when they're looking for the finish. But when Manel Kape was looking for the finish here, you know, he was swarming, but he was staying composed. It was controlled chaos, I think. He was swarming, but he was still picking his shots. He was still landing very efficiently and very precisely, so that was cool to see. The finishing sequence there actually reminded me of the first Chuck Liddell versus Tito Ortiz fight. I think it was the first one. I'm pretty sure it was. The first Chuck Liddell versus Tito Ortiz fight where Chuck had Tito against the cage and came at him with that striking flurry. But what reminded me of it was that he was very efficient, very effective, very precise with his strikes, but he was also throwing a variety of strikes. He was coming from different angles, kind of moving and shifting and throwing from different angles, and just a nice way to mix it up as the opponent is adjusting their guard, blocking where they feel like the strikes are coming from, just constantly mixing it up and coming from different angles so as to land those strikes. I love to see that. I do think Kape will have the upper hand in the striking. I think he'll land more consistently while Bontorin will be kind of waiting on the outside for that one big strike, like I said. He could land that one big shot and take Kape out, but I lean toward thinking he won't. That said, I think Bontorin is the more dangerous grappler, but Kape is a very solid wrestler, and I'm not confident that Bontorin will be able to take Kape down consistently, and if he can, I'm not necessarily confident that he'll be able to keep him down. Like I said, he is a tight, stifling grappler, but Manel Kape is he's very explosive, he's very athletic, he's very scrambly. He's the kind of guy who even with that type of stifling grappler on top of him is potentially going to be able to get back to his feet. That said, Bontorin is very good at finding the back in a scramble, so if they do go to the ground, Bontorin potentially finding that back take, even if he's not able to get the choke, that's at least a position that's more difficult to escape from. Maybe he can ride out minutes of control time that way. Okay, but overall, I do like Manel Kape to win this fight. I understand why he's favored, but I think he might be a little bit over-favored here. I haven't bet anything in this fight, but if I was going to, Rogerio Bontorin can be had for like plus 195, which is like 34% implied. I do think you can argue that there's some betting value there. If Bontorin were to get up higher to like plus 220, plus 225 or something like that, I think I'd take a shot on him. And, maybe you could even look at, I don't know what the chances are that he finds a sub, but let me see if I can find that line. I did not look that up. Let's see if we can find. Let's see. Rogerio Bontorin by submission can be had for like plus 550. I don't know. That's something I might potentially take a look at, especially if you're trying to have some fun with it, But, I do like Manel Kape to win the fight. I don't like the value on him. I would potentially look at the value on Bontorin's money line or Bontorin by sub if I was going to bet it, which I am not, at least at the moment. Next up, we've got Jack Della Maddalena versus Ramazan Emeev. Emeev? I don't know. People say Emeev. I say Emeev. I'm not sure which one is actually right. Jack Della Maddalena. So for the betting odds, Jack Della Maddalena can currently be had for about minus 151. Come back on Ramazan Emeev at plus 140. I did bet Jack Della Maddalena's money line here. I think I got him at like minus 125. As usual, we'll recap the bets that I have at the end of the breakdown here. Jack is 2-0 in the UFC. You know, it's of course if you're counting his Contender Series fight. Technically, he's 1-0 in the UFC, 1-0 in the Contender Series. Emeev is 5-2 in the UFC. Emeev has gone to decision in all 7 of his UFC fights, so he's never been finished, and he's never finished an opponent. He can be very low volume on the feet with only 2.52 significant strikes landed per minute. And also, even though he is known as a takedown artist, he is known as a wrestler, his takedown accuracy is actually only 29%, which is quite low. Even though, like I said, you know, I showed my hand already. I did bet Jack Della Maddalena here. I do like him to win this fight. But first things first, this is a big step up in competition for Jack Della Maddalena. But I do think it's a winnable fight for him just the same. Some interesting stats here. Jack attempts 17.1 significant strikes per minute and lands 8.4. Those are incredible numbers. You know, I don't always look, you know, comb through the stats too much, but I usually do look at them, and I'm trying to remember. I can't remember another fighter I've seen since I started doing this that has 17.1 significant strikes per minute. Obviously, that's a small sample size. That's only 2 fights, but still, that's a pretty incredible number. Jack is an excellent boxer. I mean, if you've watched him fight, you know that. He has great movement on the feet, great combos. He pressures well and he counters well, which I think is cool to see. You know, some fighters we sort of we pigeonhole them. This person's a pressure fighter who looks to be aggressive and go first. This person's a counter fighter who looks for their opponent to go first so they can find openings. Jack tends to do both of those things. I think he kind of reads the situation and figures out what makes more sense, and he's pretty comfortable and good at doing both, so that's cool to see. He does keep a tight guard up. And he's also that rare fighter who looks like he might be equally comfortable from both stances. He switches stances, and he throws pretty well and defends pretty well from both. He does use his jab consistently. He has nice hooks and uppercuts, very accurate hands. Just overall, a very good boxer. Just a joy to watch. I really enjoy his striking. He really, like I said, he puts a lot of volume out there. He mixes up his strikes well. He times his strikes really well. Just a really impressive boxer. He also cuts angles well. He evades punches pretty well, uses head movement, all that sort of thing. As a striker, Ramazan Emeev is pretty flat-footed. He doesn't use a lot of movement. He's kind of tentative with his strikes. Like, overall, I think Jack will eat him up on the feet if they stay there. Obviously, Emeev is going to be looking to not stay there. Like I said, though, Emeev is only 29% on his takedown attempts. You know, he has that name that ends with EV, but I think he doesn't really live up to that name too much. He doesn't really live up to the reputation that tends to come with that. You know, he is known as a takedown-based, grappling-based fighter, but when you get right down to it, he's kind of just not that guy. He's kind of, in my opinion anyway. And also, Jack Della Maddalena has shown great scrambling ability in his fights. He has been taken down, and he has settled in on his back at times and closed his guard at times, which I don't like to see. But he hasn't done that for a long time. You know, he eventually will get busy with his guard. He will get active with his hips. He will look to get to his feet. And in the Anže Losa fight on the Contender Series, we saw him do a really nice job of being able to, when Anže Losa was looking for takedowns, being able to sort of, almost like in a judo or aikido type way, he was able to just use his opponent's momentum and was able to kind of just roll through those takedowns and even end up on top himself. He was able to use that momentum. Very, very much an aikido thing. Where was I? Oh, okay, so essentially the only way I see Jack Della Maddalena losing this fight is if Emeev can either take him down early in rounds and keep him down, or if he can take him down and keep taking him down. Like if he takes him down and Jack is able to get back up, Emeev will need to be able to take him down again. And, find a finish on the ground. Obviously, I'm talking about if it goes all 15 minutes, he's either going to have to be able to hold him down or take him down over and over again or find that finish. And I lean toward thinking Emeev is going to struggle to do that. He'll probably be able to take Jack down. I lean toward thinking he's going to struggle to hold him down for long spells or take him down repeatedly, which I think he'll need to do to win. So given all of that, I like Jack Della Maddalena to either win a decision here or possibly even find a late finish by strikes. He's not one of those guys that, finds that big KO punch and finishes you that way, but he's a guy who just has those really fast, really accurate hands who will, it's death by 1,000 cuts kind of thing. He'll start landing on you and he'll just find the button over and over again. It's, that Diaz brothers type of style, that Max Holloway type of style. So I did bet Jack Della Maddalena's money line. I haven't yet, but I'm also going to take a look at Jack Della Maddalena by KO and possibly, like a late round prop. Jack Della Maddalena by KO in round 3, something like that is something I might look to sprinkle. Y'all know I love those little round sprinkle props and that kind of thing. Unfortunately, right now on betmma.tips, they track your bets in 3 different categories. They track your straight money line picks, your prop bets, and your parlays. I was profitable in all 3 areas for a long time. I did recently drop down to not profitable on my props, but I jumped back up. I'm still in the red on the props, but only by a tiny bit because I hit some props. I went 3-1 on prop bets, I think, on this last card. So I jumped back up. I'm still in the red on props, but only a tiny bit. So, and the nice thing is with these sprinkles where you're putting 0.2 units on like a plus 1,200, plus 2,000, crazy stuff like that. If I hit 1, I'll be right back up in the green again. All right, next fight, Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Weili Zhang. Betting line here, Weili Zhang can be had for minus 160. Come back on Joanna as the underdog, plus 150. This is an interesting fight because, obviously we've seen this fight before. What was about 2 years ago, I think. But one interesting thing to consider is that since then, Joanna hasn't fought at all. Joanna's last fight was the first fight with Weili Zhang, whereas Weili Zhang has fought twice in championship fights against the cream of the crop in Rose Namajunas. Obviously, that first fight was over very quickly, but the second fight went to decision, right? If I remember correctly, I think it did. So she fought so Weili Zhang's most recent fight was going a full 5 hard rounds with the best in the world. So while Joanna has been on a 2-year break, Weili Zhang has been getting better and better. And, sometimes that 2-year break can be a good thing, but, the traditional wisdom tends to hold that 2-year break is a good thing when you're about 23 years old and you're learning the game and you're getting better and better. A lot of times by the time I think Joanna's 34 now, not that, an old dog can't learn new tricks, and not that 34 is even a super old dog, but it's getting up there a little bit. But traditional wisdom seems to hold that a 2-year layoff in your mid to late 30s is potentially more of a negative than a positive. Every individual is different, but just something to keep in mind. The general breakdown of these two skill set wise is that Joanna is the better technical striker and puts out the better volume, but Weili Zhang has the better power. Well, here's some numbers for you. In the first fight, Zhang Weili actually attempted 43 more strikes, but Joanna landed 26 more. That actually goes against what I just said a little bit, but I guess it covers the Joanna being the more technical striker. Weili did throw more strikes, but Joanna was being the more technical striker was more accurate and landed more strikes. What we did see in the first fight was that Zhang Weili was eventually figured out that she was able to take Joanna's shots, and she was able to wade through them to deliver her own more powerful shots. And that's a really empowering thing for a fighter to figure out. Once I can take the best shots that this person is throwing at me, and they can't necessarily take the shots that I'm throwing at them, and then you can feel comfortable doing the whole, I'm going to take one to give 1 or give 2 or give 3 or whatever I can get off. That can be a really empowering thing for a fighter's confidence. And I think keeping that in mind here, that they've already had that first fight, I think there's a chance we might see like a new level of confidence and aggression from Weili Zhang, given what she learned from the first fight and given what she's been through with Rose Namajunas since then. She's grown as a fighter, probably skill-wise and confidence-wise, just as far as who she is coming into the octagon. She has built upon who she was in that first fight with the time that she's put in there, learning and getting better, both in the gym, in the room with her coaches and training partners, and with the time she put in there against Rose Namajunas. So, we're potentially seeing Joanna Jędrzejczyk coming in as, perhaps more or less the same fighter, and we might see Weili Zhang coming in as a different fighter. And another thing to consider is that Weili knows that she doesn't have to worry about 5-round cardio here. Obviously, Joanna knows that as well. But, Weili as a fighter who is a little bit more of a brute force kind of fighter who's looking to throw hard and land hard, I think that she... that could be a different level of confidence for her as well, knowing that she doesn't need to go 25 minutes here. She can right from the opening bell, look to wade through those shots and land her own shots. So we might see her. So there's a lot of reasons there, I think, that we could see Weili coming out more confident, more aggressive, and just feeling herself more, That said, I don't really like a bet on this fight at the moment just because of where the line is at. Zhang Weili is at about -160, Joanna at +140. Those lines seem about right to me. If I was going to bet it, I'd probably take the plus money on the underdog, but because I do like Zhang Weili to win here, I'm not interested in doing that at the moment. If we saw Joanna get, she's at what, like, I put +140 in my notes, but is that what it was when I pulled it up? I guess she could be had as high as +150 in spots. If she got up much higher than that, I would maybe take a shot at it. But right now, the bet that I did make on this fight was I bet the over 2.5 rounds. I do think that, especially that we're going 3 rounds here rather than 5 rounds, I think we probably do get through all 3 of those rounds, and the over 2.5 even covers the possibility of a late finish there. But I can't remember what line I got on that, but I think it was like -240, something like that. So a little bit steep, but I do think that we probably do make it over 2.5 there. So I lean Weili Zhang to win the fight here. If I was gonna bet it, I would probably go with the dog, but I do like that over 2.5 bet. Next up, we've got Valentina Shevchenko versus Della Santos. This is such a good card, you guys. These are some good fights here. This is going to be a lot of fun. These last like 3 or 4 fights are going to be a lot of fun. So Shevchenko versus Della Santos. What do we got for betting odds here? Shevchenko, the best you can get her at is -550, but she's more at like -600, -650, even -800 in spots. Della Santos, the best she can be had for is +550, but she's more like +450, +500 range, that sort of thing. Throw a few stats at you here. I'm usually kind of all over the place with my stats. I don't necessarily cover the same stats for each fight. It's kind of just whatever stands out to me while I'm doing the research. I just sort of type them up and throw them at you. So Shevchenko lands only 3.2 significant strikes per minute, which seems low, but I think it's because she's one of those fighters who kind of does what she needs to do. I think she's very efficient with her output. She doesn't waste a lot of effort or energy. She kind of just throws. I mean, this is oversimplifying it, but I feel like she kind of just throws when she knows she's going to land, or feels like there's a pretty good chance. She's not wasting a lot of strikes or wasting a lot of energy. She also absorbs only 1.8 significant strikes per minute, which is excellent. Shevchenko has 77% takedown defense. She has been taken down a total of 7 times in her 13 UFC fights, and 4 of those 7 times were in her 2 losses to Amanda Nunes. So to state that a different way, in her 11 UFC fights that were not against Amanda Nunes, she has been taken down a total of 3 times. So let me say that again. In the 11 fights that she has had in the UFC that were not against Amanda Nunes, she has been taken down a total of only 3 times. She has landed 38 takedowns in her 13 UFC fights. I thought that was really impressive. In fact, to the point that now I'm doubting that I typed that statistic correctly, but I'm pretty sure I did. I know that Valentina is a very well-rounded fighter. She's a solid striker. She's a solid wrestler. She's a solid grappler. But I would not have guessed that she's landed 38 takedowns in her 13 UFC fights. So that is pretty impressive. But you know what else is impressive? Della Santos has landed 13 of 15 takedown attempts in the UFC and has 42% control time against her opponents. So, yeah, she's attempted 15 takedowns. She's gotten 13 of them, has 42% control time against her opponents, which is pretty amazing. Now on to breaking them down a little bit. Valentina, like I said, she's extremely well-rounded. She's a great striker, solid wrestler and grappler as well. She has great fight IQ, excellent ability to put her skill sets together into a complete MMA performance. She has the skills in the different areas. She has a good understanding of when to go to those skills, how to put them together into a complete MMA game. She likes to come forward with punching combos and then finish them with a leg kick. You'll see her jab, hook, leg kick. That's a combo she uses a lot. She uses that to great effect. Valentina she's very physical. She has really good eyes. She sees what's coming. She knows how to react to it, and she's so skilled everywhere that I think it's really hard to do anything to her that really puts her off her game or gets her attention. Or like when you hear the commentators say, oh, this fighter needs to get the respect back, you know, like they need to land something that hurts their opponent, or they need to get in on a takedown to get their opponent thinking about that, you know, like something to get that respect, to get to throw your opponent off their game a little bit, to get them thinking about something that you're coming their way with. You know, I think it's really hard to do that to Valentina. She's tough to shake, and she's so well rounded that to give her a look or put something in her face or land something on her that kind of puts a little bit of fear in her it's a really difficult thing to do. And because of that, I think a lot of Valentina's opponents are sort of defeated mentally. Maybe even before they get in the ring, and if it's not before they get in the ring, then it's shortly after the fight starts. Looking at the Lauren Murphy fight as an example, if you just watch Lauren Murphy's body language in that fight, it's like she decides very early on, I just can't do anything to her, and she's still in there, she's still going through the motions, but you can just see that she is pretty much done trying to win the fight. She's, you know, I'm jumping to conclusions here. I don't know what's in somebody's head. I'm just reading body language here, but it looks to me in the Murphy-Shevchenko fight that Lauren Murphy decides early on that I got to be in here, I got to do this, I got to go through the motions, but I'm not going to win this fight. She's better than me and I can't beat her. And I think that happens to a lot of fighters. I don't think it will happen to Taila Santos. I think Taila Santos is also really well-rounded. I think she's also really physical, possibly even more physical than Valentina. I think she's very confident. I think she believes in herself. I guess what I'm saying is, if Shevchenko wins this fight, I'm not going to be surprised. If she dominates this fight, I actually kind of will be surprised. Well, let me give a little bit of a caveat there. If we get to the 4th and 5th rounds and Shevchenko dominates the fight because Taila Santos is dead tired, that won't shock me. If Valentina Shevchenko absolutely dominates the early going in this fight, that will shock me, because I think when they are fresh, skill for skill, as far as how they match up and how they match up as athletes and physicality, I think Taila Santos is, I think she's going to be right there, at least at first. Maybe that sounds crazy when I'm talking about somebody who's like a 4-1, 5-1 underdog, but and because Shevchenko is as good as she is, and you know, it's possible she's going to get the vet lesson here. She's stepping all the way up to the best there is. Maybe Taila Santos isn't ready, and I'm wrong, but I think Taila Santos is very good, and I think she has well-rounded skills that can keep her in this fight, at least in the early going. But Santos's cardio is a huge question mark here. We have seen her start to slow down in the 3rd round. How many times has Shevchenko gone to the championship rounds? She knows she can do that. That's old hat. That's nothing to her. Whereas to Taila Santos, you know, that's got to be in the back of her mind a little bit, that not only am I going in there against the best in the world, but I got to stretch it out. You know, I might get to the 4th and the 5th rounds here, and I think we will see her slow down if that happens. That said, betting is a game of numbers, you know. We're always trying to figure out, you know, who do we think is going to win this fight? How is it going to play out? But then we got to look at the numbers. We got to look at the betting lines. We got to figure those things out. Taila Santos can currently be had for, I can't remember what line I gave at the beginning of the breakdown here, but in my book, in William Hill right now, or a little earlier today anyway, when I looked, she was at plus 475, which is 17% implied. I believe that is a good bet. Like I said, if we get to rounds 4 and 5, is she going to look 17% implied? Probably. But I don't think she's going to look that way in rounds 1, 2, and 3. Does that mean that I think she's going to be able to finish Valentina in rounds 1, 2, and 3? No, not necessarily. But I can't get away from the idea that giving Taila Santos only a 17% chance to win here just doesn't seem, it doesn't sit right with me. And I haven't bet this yet, but I think that I'm terrible at reading line movement. I was right with that Damon Jackson, getting him at minus 280, because I thought that was going to swell up. But I kind of think more people, I do see a lot of sharp people betting Santos. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter saying, hey, Santos is a good bet here, and I agree. But I think that we're going to see a lot of square money out there putting Valentina in their parlays at the last minute. So I think we might even get a better line on Santos later in the week. So I think I'm going to wait. But you know, it's not going to be a huge confident play. I'm not like Taila Santos is totally going to win here. Like I said, I think Valentina's going to win, but it's that numbers game, and I think 17% implied is worth a shot. And, you know, if she drops later in the week, if we see her drop to 15% implied or 12% implied and we can get, you know, plus 500, plus 600, something like that, I'm going to have to take a shot on that. If it was a 3-round fight, I would absolutely feel great about betting Tyla at this number. For sure. I think Tyla would be an excellent bet at plus 475 if it was a 3-round fight, but it's her slowing down in those later rounds that's got me staying off it right now. But like I said, if it gets any higher, I'm gonna have to take a shot on it. That said, I've seen a lot of people betting the late round props for Valentina, and I think those are great bets. You know, and that's probably what I'll do if I do end up betting Tyla's money line. I'll probably bet Tyla's money line, and then I'll probably sprinkle Valentina to finish in round 3, round 4, and round 5, something like that. I think that puts you in a pretty good spot, because if we do get to those later rounds, I think there's a good chance that we'll see Valentina get a finish there. So yes, I do like Valentina Shevchenko to win. I like those late finish props on her, but I potentially like a little bit of a sprinkle on Tyla Santos as the underdog as well. Oh, finally, folks. It's a good thing I'm only doing the main card. My throat, I was just sick, and I had a sore throat and stuff. My throat's starting to give out on me already. The headlining fight for the UFC light heavyweight title, Glover Teixeira versus the challenger Jiri Prochazka. The betting lines here, Jiri can be had at about minus 195. He's up at like minus 200, minus 210 in spots. Glover Teixeira can be had for plus 175. So against Jan in Glover's last fight, we didn't see Glover mess around. He shot a takedown, got in on the hips, lifted Jan, and slammed him to the ground within probably the first 30, 40 seconds. That's what we want to see here, right? He's and it's not that Glover can't box. Glover can box. Glover's a good boxer. He has some power, but you know, he knew his best shot in that fight was to get Jan to the ground, and he looked to do it right away. He was able to grind on Jan for that whole first round, but he wasn't able to find a finish. You know, he kind of just was, you know, Glover will do that thing where he'll, you know, he's almost like he'll cover up your mouth, he'll push his forearm into your face, he'll push his head into your chin. He's making you as uncomfortable as he can. He wasn't landing a lot of damage, but just kind of grinding on Jan, you know, grinding on his cardio, grinding on his spirit, grinding on his confidence, that kind of thing. At the start of round 2, Jan was able to land some shots on Glover, but Glover eventually, if I remember correctly, Glover got a takedown, then they got back up to the feet and they were against the cage, and then Glover landed I think it was a left hook that, it didn't drop Jan quite, but it hurt him. It might have dropped him to a knee a little bit, I can't quite remember, but he did rock Jan with a hook there too, and that's something that I think we need to keep in mind is, you know, people are kind of breaking this fight down as like, either Jiri's going to smoke Glover on the feet or Glover's going to take Jiri down and submit him. Do I think Glover's going to want to stay on the feet and mix it up in the striking with Jiri for long periods of time? No. Do I think it's wise for Glover to do that? No. But we have to keep in mind Glover can box and he does have some power, and Jiri can be hit and Jiri can be hurt. So, I mean, Glover's not a fish out of water with the striking. I still don't think it's a good idea for him to engage there, but he's going to have to engage at times, at least, right? I mean, if he you know, even to set up his takedowns, to set up his clinches, whatever he's looking for, he's going to have to strike, you know, at some points in the fight. I put in my notes here, I was leaning Jiri, but as I'm typing up these notes and thinking about these different angles, I'm starting to lean Glover. I think Glover is a good bet at plus 175. I was literally in the process of typing my notes, and then I stopped and did that because I was going into this breakdown thinking that I was going to pick Jiri and be confident in Jiri, but then I started thinking like, man, I can see the ways that Glover can win this. But anyway, moving on. Jiri will likely land big strikes on Glover. I think it's important to remember Glover does have a good chin. He's 42 years old now. There's always concerns there. You know, how much is he going to be physically declined? Is his chin going to fall off? I mean, you just never know when somebody's older. I'm 43 years old myself. I just recently found out that I was older than Glover, and everybody's always calling him old man Glover and stuff, so it was kind of funny to me when I found out, like, oh man, Glover's younger than I am. But anyway, Glover does have a good chin. Glover has only been finished by strikes 3 times in a career that spans 40 pro fights. One of those times was after getting beat up for 5 rounds by Alexander Gustafsson. One of those was early in the first round against Anthony Johnson, who is literally one of the most devastating power punchers in UFC history. I mean, we've got, if you know, that short list is like Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis, Shane Carwin, Anthony Johnson. Maybe, you know, I mean, he's literally probably top 5 most devastating power punchers ever. And so, yeah, he was able to finish Glover. And I lost my notes here. The third one was literally in his MMA debut, which was back in 2002. Probably like before some of you who are watching this were even born. Maybe not, but when some of you were children and had never seen the UFC anyway, I'm guessing. I think it is more than reasonable to assume that Glover will get a hold of Jiri at some point. I think it is more than reasonable to assume that Glover will get Jiri to the ground at some point. And if he's able to do that with a decent chunk of time left on the clock, I think it's more than reasonable that Glover can find the back, find the neck, or potentially find a ground and pound stoppage. You know, also we have to consider, you know, Jiri's a wild man. He's got that wild, aggressive style. He's not the kind of guy who's thinking about extending to 5 rounds. I don't know how good Jiri's cardio is, but typically a guy of that size who fights in the way that Jiri does is not going to be able to keep that up over 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes, you know? So could Jiri catch Glover and finish him early? Absolutely. But this is one of those fights where I think it starts to favor Glover more and more the longer the fight goes, which is weird because he's the old man, but I really do with the style that Jiri has and the style that Glover has. I think the longer this fight goes, the more we're going to see Glover start to take over. That said, Jiri is the bigger guy, the faster guy, the younger guy, the more athletic guy. And like I said, Glover, he's a slow and rickety 42 years old. So, you know, athleticism, physicality, all on Jiri's side here. No doubt about that. He is a fast, scary, dangerous guy. And those are all concerns. But, and like I said, maybe it's the old man bias in me, but I like Glover at plus 175. And like I said with Shevchenko and Santos, I also wonder if we might see a better line on that as we get closer to fight time. You know, this is a pay-per-view card. We see more, kind of square money coming in on these kinds of cards, especially late. I think we're going to see people. I think we're going to see casual fans throwing the big, scary samurai-looking guy in their parlays, and we might get an even better line on Glover. I'm going to give a shout out to Punch List MMA podcast, just because I love the podcast and I love those guys. Dale from that podcast was recently on my show. He's a good dude. I've never talked to Trey personally, but he's a good dude too. I like their show a lot. But anyway, shout out to Punch List MMA for putting this idea out there. But you could play Glover's money line and then hedge with Jiri by KO. And then you're covered as long as Jiri doesn't get a sub or win a decision, which both seem pretty unlikely. And I think that's potentially a decent way to approach this fight. I haven't looked into doing that yet, but I might. But yeah, I'm. As for a pick, like, I keep leaning toward actually even going with Glover, not just as a bet, as an underdog, but even as a pick. I think I'm going to do it. I am biased here. I always say I'm one of those weirdos who I don't really have favorite fighters. I don't really get emotionally invested in particular fighters. I get more excited about like interesting matchups and like fights that have like interesting and unexpected outcomes. Like if I'm cheering for a specific fighter, it's either because I have a bet on them or because they're the underdog. I just always want unexpected outcomes. That's what's fun for me, and I don't really typically care who wins that much. But this is a fight where just Glover being the 42-year-old champion who had, worked really hard to get into the organization, had visa issues early on, couldn't get into the UFC, finally did get into the UFC, struggled for a long time, finally put together a win streak, got his shot at the title at 42 years old, won the title at 42 years old, is still out there doing the damn thing and at the highest level at 42 years old. It's hard for me not to get behind that kind of story. So, yes, I do have some biases here. I am going to pick Glover Teixeira to win this fight. I also think his money line is a pretty good bet, or potentially looking at him inside the distance, or maybe by sub. Although I think I've seen a lot of people on Glover by sub, but I do think that him finding a ground and pound finish is fairly likely too. So I don't mind looking at an inside the distance here. But yeah, I definitely still have some things to figure out as far as props that I like and that sort of thing. But keep an eye on my betmma.tips. You can find me there at betmma.tips/Erik Block. That's ERIKBLOCK. That's where you can find my bets. I do try to post them on Twitter, but sometimes I just don't get around to posting them and I don't remember and whatever. So I'm not always reliable for that. So check there. Otherwise, also on the DFS by the Numbers YouTube channel, if you're not aware of this already, every Saturday that there's a UFC card, I'm part of a 4-man panel on a show called Best Bet. The show starts 1 hour before the prelims kick off. I don't even know what time the prelims kick off this Saturday, but whatever time that is, our show starts 1 hour before that on the DFS by the Numbers YouTube channel. We go through, all 4 of us go through the entire card and give our favorite bet for each card. That's a spot where you're going to hear some really good ideas for props and that sort of thing. Not only from myself, but from some of the other guys as well, especially Narco Cop. If you're not familiar with Narco Cop, he's a prop king. He's a prop specialist. He's always throwing out he hosts a show called the Lambo Plays podcast, and the idea behind the show is they do a panel of like 3 or 4 cappers, and every bet has to be at least plus 300. So they only give out big money prop bets. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, check out that show. Also, make sure to subscribe to Never Hedge Media if you haven't yet. Some of my stuff will be put out on here. Some of my stuff will also be put out on my own personal channel on YouTube at Erik Bets Fights. You can also find me at Erik Bets Fights on Twitter and on Instagram. If you check me out on Twitter, go to my bio there. I've got a link tree, and in that link tree you can find all the different spots where you can find me, including a link to my tracked record and a link to my online store where I have some cool t-shirts and mugs and that sort of thing that will appeal to MMA fans and fight nerds. Anyway, that's what I've got for you for your main card breakdown for UFC 275. Keep an eye on the Erik Bets Fights channel. When I get the prelims breakdown out, assuming that I have time to do that, I'm going to be dropping that on the Erik Bets Fights channel, so make sure to check that out as well. Thank you so much for watching the video, folks. I always appreciate y'all being here. I am Erik with Erik Bets Fights, reminding you to play it smart, play it tight, and let's grow those bankrolls. Enjoy the fights at UFC 275 this weekend, everybody. Have a great one.